Hello, and welcome to our next session of From the Forecast Desk. I am Steve Abelman, an aviation weather solutions consultant with the weather company. So today's topic is very relevant and very appropriate for this time of season, and we're going to be talking about tropical weather. So here we sit early in the 2026 hurricane season, and really the only news so far in the Atlantic basin anyway, is that the long-range prediction buzz is all about this being an El Nino year, and during El Nino years, we have quieter than normal Atlantic hurricane seasons. However, for our airline customers, the number of storms forecast in a season matters far less than where a storm will track and when a storm will hit, and that's something that weeks and months out that nobody can predict at this time. So this episode is going to focus on where TWC actually makes the difference, and that's when the storm becomes a threat. We'll unpack how our teams in Andover and also our Met staffs that are embedded within operations centers help customers maintain safe and efficient operations. And I was looking back historically, and I was thinking about this. So back in '92, this was also a pronounced El Nino, and we only had a few storms that year, but one of them was Hurricane Andrew, and we all know what Hurricane Andrew did. And then I looked back, and 1983 was actually the least active season on record with only 4 named storms. But one of those storms was Alicia, which struck the Houston, Galveston area, billions of dollars of damage and like 21 deaths. So the through line here is it really only takes one. So right now, I'm going to introduce you to our panel, or let our panel introduce themselves. And so good morning, Jim.
Morning. I'm Jim, and I'm the one of the managers in the Andover Forecasting Center. My team basically handles global tropical weather.
Welcome, and good morning, Jeff.
Hey, good morning. I'm Jeff, and I'm a meteorologist-in-charge at one of the embedded sites with the airlines. So we're working hand in hand with our customers, helping them make better decisions off of weather.
Great. So let's get into it here. So, first of all, once a storm forms and becomes a threat, what does your team start doing for our aviation customers?
We produce forecasts for any tropical system anywhere in the world. Right now, we're producing forecasts for Super Typhoon Bavi out in the Western Pacific. Steve's absolutely right, though. It only takes one storm. Andrew's a good example of that. You can go back to, I think, 88 or 89, you had Hurricane Hugo, which slammed into South Carolina. Again, it just takes one storm. And what happens with my team is, we're monitoring the global tropical weather all the time. And as soon as we get indications from either satellite or model data, or even the National Hurricane Center or Joint Typhoon Warning Center, that something's going to form or something has formed, we begin our forecast process. And what we do is we start looking at potential tracks where potential locations may be impacted, and we'll let teams like Jeff's teams know, hey, your locations may be impacted worldwide. And once a system forms and it begins moving towards given locations, we'll begin forecasting what's going to happen. We'll produce our own forecast track, which may or may not be similar to the National Hurricane Center or the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's track. It might be slightly different, because we can do that. And also, we'll begin producing what we call these wind tables, which show the start and stop times of sustained winds and wind gusts above 30 knots, which are critical for airport operations. Once winds get above 30 knots, they're going to start scaling back airport operations. But when the winds get above 50 knots, more than likely the airport's going to shut down. And the airlines need to know when that's going to happen. And they also need to know when it's going to stop, so that they can plan their recovery missions. Our forecasts usually start 3 to 4 days before a location is impacted, which is a good 24 to potentially even 36 hours before the National Hurricane Center will even issue watches. So we are providing our customers with a heads up well before the government is. And we will update our forecast every 6 hours. We use our own forecast models and our own experience, and then we pass it off to Jeff and his group.
Yeah. So we get the weather data that the reports come out from James and Andover, and we take it to our customers and then tailor it for them. So what they do, start looking about 36 hours before an event happens. They start looking at, hey, when should we have our last aircraft depart out of here and make sure our crews and everyone else are all out safely. And the wind forecast, you look at it, well, maybe it's not just a crosswind at a location. There's other unique things that go on. Jacksonville, Florida is a good example. The city has 2 large bridges that dissect the city into 3 pieces. Once winds sustain 40 miles an hour, the city shuts them down. Transportation stops. Same way over in Japan. You have a lot of gateways that have airports are out on the islands. So it's not just the crosswind limitation. It's a lot of other things that are operational with that. But we talk to our customers about everything, and they try to make the plan of when they think they can get the last aircraft out. But then what James was talking about, recovery. When can we get the first one back in? And it's not just say, oh, at 10 a.m. today, the airport's going to be open. You have to put things in place. Crews have to be in rest. If it's an 8 to 10 hour flight, you're now looking at 24 hours before the storm ends, trying to get things back in place to get recovery back in there. And it's the confidence. It's when you're talking to your customers, basically, they're looking in you in the face and trusting you what we're saying and everything like that. So it's a twofold process, Steve, on what we've been doing is talking about the beginning and also talking about the recovery phase.
Thanks. Very, very, very true. Very true. So a common question from our customers relates to safe operation on the fringes of the storm impact. It's often very obvious to decide to cancel operations days in advance when a large airport is in a hit zone. But what about operations of, say, regional size aircraft or any aircraft within maybe 125 miles of the center?
Oh, that's a good question, Steve. So basically, what you got to do is sort of calm fears, because whenever someone names a storm, everyone, oh my gosh, this, and you got to go up there and with confidence talk about the forecast track, but you just don't talk about the actual track. You talk about also the possibilities and the confidence, because when we're getting these reports back, there's going to be how confident are you? And there's some leniency. Model deck guidance has been deviating this way or deviating that way. We'll monitor it, but you're trying to calm the fears in these people so they have the confidence to go ahead and operate.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And Jim, I think one of the things you get asked frequently is to produce tables right in the fringes of these storms where, the threshold might even be below hurricane threshold, but seeing this table makes a difference, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. We often get requests from the various customers for those fringe locations, and we always wonder why. They're not going to get anything. They're not going to get any weather. Winds are going to be 20 knots at most, which is nothing for a big jet. But it's those reasons, Steve. They need to know. Can we put our aircraft at those locations and store them there for a day or two, and then move them back to the impacted airports? And also, you have the issue of if an airport is going to take a direct hit, how bad could the damage be? And will that airport be out of operations for a couple of days? That's also a very distinct possibility. And so those surrounding locations are very, very important.
Yes, definitely. Thanks. So not only do we have impact of a storm at a terminal itself, but clearly aviation en route tracks will not cross the center of a hurricane. But how close can you fly to promote a safe operation without massively overfueling or canceling a route?
Well, That's a good question, Steve. So basically what we do with the dispatchers is sort of give them a little training and it's called a Central Dense Overcast Zone, which is the core of the hurricane. And if you look at the satellite temperatures, it's normally around -60 to -80 degrees Celsius is what the core is in there. And that's where you're trying to avoid the center of it. Now, you also have to look at the outer bands because those have other different issues. But for the center part of it, we'd have them avoid that. And in the northern hemisphere, when we're traveling, westbound traffic normally goes south of a tropical system, and eastbound traffic normally goes north of the system. That's optimizing the fuel consumption. You look at the outer bands also. Those are more where you have arms or extending out of convection, and those are problematic as well. It's quite a bit of wind shear in there. You have your thunderstorms, lightning, and you talk about doing that. And I'll use an example, just the hurricane hunters. When they fly through, they don't just go blindly through the storm. They have advanced radar that they're going to pick their way through, especially those outer bands when they move through them.
Yeah, those bands, those outer bands are often not as tropical in nature and can really be like a severe line of thunderstorms. And so sometimes, that's definitely impactful. So let's shift a little bit toward make tactical changes. So obviously we know every storm doesn't behave, but we do know that TWC has an important role in keeping our customers continuously updated when there is a change in storm size, path, or confidence. So how do you go about doing that?
Well, we're always, I should say this, my team is always monitoring the storm, looking at satellite imagery, looking at the latest observations, whether it's reconnaissance, buoys, whatever, and of course, model data. And we're basically just seeing how is the storm performing with regards to the forecast models? Which model has been doing the best job? And when we see that there is a change in the track or a potential change in the track coming that was not forecast, or it begins intensifying rapidly, a lot faster than expected, or weakens, my team will be in complete contact with Jeff's teams and other teams, and just keep them updated all the time. We're constantly monitoring these storms, 24/7, and once we see something happening, we will let them know.
Yeah. And then once we get the data from his team, from James' team, we take it to our customers now and communicate that. And that's the part where, you're constantly telling them there's a confidence level in it. And hey, these are we're really confident in the track, but we're unsure of the wind speed, or hey, the model data has been turning it more to the left. If this continues, you're going to see maybe winds on this side improve and deteriorate on the other side. And it's more just taking those reports and conveying your confidence and having your customers trust you, because if you look at it, we're forecasting, or James' team's forecasting for the entire world. There's no one else. The Hurricane Center does the Atlantic. There's other people that do different sections, but no one does the entire world. And with his team doing it, they have the best experience out there.
Thanks. I'll add one example. The wobble, the wobble in the eye is always something that opens people's eyes from a customer's perspective, because they'll see a satellite picture where all of a sudden there were 2 or 3 westward wobbles of a storm that's moving due north, and the panic sets in. But I think that confidence that your team, puts in saying, okay, these are just wobbles. These aren't general motion changes or the eye walls reforming. Those kinds of things are all really important parts of what you relay to our customers. So, well, this is great. I want to give you both the floor for some closing thoughts here, because there's a lot we obviously haven't covered, but I think both of you might have some closing thoughts. So, Jim, what do you think?
Well, as I mentioned before, it only takes one storm. I mean, you could have a year like we might have this year, where there won't be that many named storms. I think the forecast is like 12 or 13 named storms, like, something like that. And 10 of them go out to sea. One of them is a near miss, and yet one storm, and let's say it's a Hurricane Andrew type of storm, just slams into some location somewhere. Suddenly, it's a very big, important season, but there was only one storm. And that's why we don't like to do seasonal forecasts. Sure, everyone does seasonal forecasts, and they can tell you, 10 to 15, 10 to 15 named storms this year, 3 to 5 major hurricanes. Everybody wants to know, that's great. Where are they going? Who's going to get hit? We can't tell you that. So the only thing I just keep telling all my customers is it just takes one storm, and you got to treat every storm as if it is that storm. It's as simple as that, because we won't know until it makes that turn wherever it's going. So you got to keep vigilant, and don't be afraid to ask questions either.
Going off what Jim was saying was, with just one storm, you have to build the confidence of your team and your customers so they trust you. When that one storm is the most important storm, they trust you in their decision-making process, because they are basing their entire operation off what we're saying. And if they don't trust you, they may say, well, let's cushion it 4 to 6 hours on either side, where they really don't have to. So, and I've seen it where you go up there and you're talking to the managers, and they're looking you in the eye, and they're just wanting to see, what is Jeff saying, or what is his team saying, and can we trust them? Or are they hemming and hawing and beating around the bush? It's getting up and being straight face to face to them and letting them know, this is the forecast. We trust what we're doing. Please take our information and base your decisions off of this. And like we were saying, one storm, we treat every storm the same, because some places in the world don't get storms that often. And when they do get one, they get really worried. And a lot of times that's when you're getting those people that they want to shut operations down a day or 2 days ahead of time. And you're saying, no, look, you're going to be good. And when you've seen it where we've talked them off the ledge, and they come back and say, thank you so much for doing what you did.
Okay, thank you both. A very insightful discussion. A lot of talk about confidence, and I think that's really relevant to what we're talking about here. So, great, another great session. Thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you very soon. Take care.